welcome back. It's How to Kill a Piano, episode 12. I'm George Tait. Thanks so much for coming back and joining us week after week for each continual part of this silly little story. If you do have a moment, please hop on iTunes or wherever you listen to these things and write a review if you're enjoying the listen. If you are going to write a review on iTunes, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is open the iTunes store. In the search box, type the name of the podcast, which is How to Kill a Piano Podcast, and then click on us in the search engine when we pop up. Then, on the iTunes page, you just have to hit the ratings and review from the top navigation. Click Write a Review, and then write the review. And then, don't forget to hit Submit. You can do the same thing and leave a review over at our Facebook page of How to Kill a Piano. Just search for How to Kill a Piano on Facebook. We'll pop right up. Leave a review, and that will blast it to even more people out there in the universe of the internet. You can also do this on YouTube, except we're not under How to Kill a Piano on YouTube. We're under Think George Tait. So if you go to youtube.com/ThinkGeorgeTait, and Tait is Tait, that's the Scottish spelling, our channel will pop right up. Just quick little aside, my great something or another was actually born in Edinburgh Castle. No, I'm not royalty, as much as I would like to be. It was just a barmaid getting it on with a guard, but that's good enough for me. So if you could take 2 seconds out of your day, leave a review, rate us 5 stars, subscribe, thumbs up, all those things that you can do in the multiverse of the internet, we'd really appreciate it. And pass the word, as always. Without further ado, here is the next chapter of How to Kill a Piano. I'll see you on the other side. Chapter 10. The Drive Home. Whenever I drove Uncle Charlie's car, the whole world would disappear, and I was left alone with my thoughts. How does light travel? Why does light even bother traveling at all? Does it pack itself a suitcase? What would it even pack? Does it travel alone? Does it get lonely, or is it full of all the life that it touches? What do people live for? Is it for love? For that matter, why do people love? Do we love to not be alone? Do we only live so that we can dream? And whose dreams are we living anyway? As I made the drive home, I tried to hang on to the image of what Charon looked like. The further I drove, the further her memory faded away. What was I thinking about again? I clutched the business card in my hand tightly as my focus shifted solely to the road. The rhythmic passing of each stripe down the center of the highway was hypnotic as the car barreled towards home. Home can be defined in about 1,000 ways, and not one of those ways is any more correct or incorrect than the others. Home is the sensation I get when I hold a cup of tea on a Saturday morning as the sun comes up. It's the jingle of Charlie's car keys as he belts out the rhythm between my toes as I dance to whatever record Charlie put on that morning. It's the quiet in the evening after the world has finally decided to rest as I float into a sleepless night. It isn't any one place. It's not a singular feeling. Home for me are the people that I've grown to love. Without them, I'm homeless. When I pulled up in the driveway, Uncle Charlie was sitting on the front porch, soaking in the sun with a book. His guitar was sitting beside him. He was taking a break from practicing. Ever since I first started to convince Charlie that he had musical talent, he made it a point to practice the guitar, but never seemed to remember his skills at the piano. I'd prefer that he'd stay away from the piano completely, but my begging hasn't seemed to change that. I carefully gathered the tea that I collected at the tea spot and walked up the front steps towards Charlie. Charlie had the ability to shut out the entire world when his nose was in a book. He didn't notice I had pulled up. "Hey man, what are you reading?" I exclaimed. Charlie dropped his book and nearly fell out of his chair when I greeted him. You startled me, sport. You know this street is like a ghost town. No one ever comes out of their damn house anymore. I was just getting to my favorite part about Alexander Bain. I stared at Uncle Charlie blankly. Alexander Bain, the great Scottish clockmaker who invented the electric clock and the first And the first person to send an image over a wire using telegraph technology, I continued, cutting Charlie off. I know. You've only told me about him 1,000 times. I don't know why you're so obsessed with him. Sometimes I think you'll never join the rest of us now that we're in the world of email. His story is as heartbreaking as it is amazing. That was in 1942, 128 years before the fax machine, and 129 years before the first email was ever sent. I admit, that does sound amazing. Do you want tea, Uncle Charlie? Desperately. That sounds like a good adventure for the evening. Often, Charlie could recount details as if he had actually been there. If it wasn't for Samuel Morse throwing claims that Bain infringed on his famous patent, perhaps progress would have been made faster, and I might have been able to have more time to love my fax machine as much as I've loved my typewriter. Charlie was bitter, and as I grew up, I noticed it more, but his heart was in the right place. You can tell a lot about someone by the figures of history that they hold respect for. Charlie favored the visionaries like Tesla over Edison, Bain over Samuel Morse, Antonio Meucci over Alexander Graham Bell, and even Hans Lippershey over Galileo. He loved to celebrate those that history had written into the shadows and taught me about important women like Vera Rubin, Margaret Knight, Rosalind Franklin, Katherine Johnson, and Hedy Lamarr. Some would say their contributions to science and invention are even more important, but for some reason, Charlie was the most stuck on Alexander Bain. I'll go in and start the tea kettle, I said, opening the screen door. I turned on the light above the stove as the sun had made its way over to the other side of the house and no longer illuminated the kitchen through the screen of the open window. I lit the burner on the stove, and the light above gently swayed side to side from its chain as it flickered right before the entire block lost power. I didn't think much of it as the kettle came to a boil, and I mulled over our choices of mugs. I filled the tea balls with loose jasmine tea and dropped one into Charlie's favorite mug that was hand-spun and painted with muddy gray and maroon swirls. I dropped the other into a mug that looked like the face of a cartoon mummy. I poured the boiling water over the top and brought the 2 mugs out to where Charlie was playing. "The power's out again," I said calmly. "The power's been in and out all day. That's okay. We don't need power to power our books or lanterns." "It must be all those emails overloading the system," I retorted sarcastically. "It's certainly not the fax machines." The steam billowed out of the top of Charlie's tea mug as it kissed the evening air. Charlie fiddled with the guitar. "I've been thinking, maybe I should take some piano lessons, Charlie." Charlie's face changed to an expression of surprise. "Are you sure? I know you haven't seemed to have much of an interest in the piano in a long time. What changed?" Charlie sipped his tea with one hand while steadying the guitar in the other. "I was looking over the bulletin board at the tea spot, and I grabbed this card. Do you think we can set up some lessons?" I passed the business card to Charlie. As I finished my first cup of tea, I fidgeted nervously by swirling the loose tea leaves around the bottom of the mummy mug. Charlie took the card and barely looked at it. "Sure, I'll call tomorrow. What are your tea leaves looking like this evening, George?" I studied them carefully, rotating the cup in my hands. This was a game Uncle Charlie and I always played, not because we thought the tea leaves could tell us anything in reality, but it was fun. It was like looking up at the clouds and shaping them into different animals. It kind of looks like a raccoon face. "So your tea is telling you that we should go through other people's trash cans?" "No, let's not actually do that." "Why not? You know I found some of the best stuff in other people's rubbish." "I'll just say that it means wash your hands and make mischief." I think that is the very definition of rummaging through the rubbish, and don't forget to wash up afterwards. "Fine, Charlie. What does yours say?" Charlie appeared to study the bottom of his cup quite seriously. "It looks like... let's see here." Charlie rotated the mug a few more times. "It looks like a traveling salesman with a briefcase." Charlie picked up his guitar again and started to strum. "I think maybe his name is Aaron." was a traveling salesman. He tried to make the world what he can. So he roamed from farm to town, trying to make his evil go down. And he watched them gorge themselves on city lights, and he watched them hide from the light of Mother's Night. He tried so hard to make them see, tried so hard to set them free. Aaron found the fuse box to the city. He tried to make everything a little more pretty, so he flicked the master switch. And that's when everyone came out of their niche and said, "Hey Aaron, what you doing, man?" "I don't know, I just want everybody to come outside." He said, "Hey Aaron, what you doing, man?" "I just wanted people to see the sky, the way the trees sway side to side, the way the light hangs in your eyes." Aaron cautiously replied. They said, "Hey Aaron, wanna turn that back on? You see we got faxes to return." They said, "Hey Aaron, wanna hurry your ass along before the city starts to burn?" Aaron found the fuse box to the city. He wanted to make everything a little more pretty, so he flicked the master switch. And that's when everyone started to bitch. The city stumbles through their homes, closed cupboards open, candle lights, the light it roams, roaming flames through window panes, catches curtains and picture frames. This then a little girl caught his eye. She just smiled and then she sighed. Little Emily came outside, her blanket torn to pieces, her best doll was fried. Aaron went to the little girl, held her in her arms and gave her a twirl. She whispered something in his ear, something only he could hear. She said, "Hey Aaron, what have you done? My dolls are dust for an urn." She said, "Hey Aaron, I've never seen the sky before, or gigantic balls that burn." Just then the street lights came back on. He looked up towards the traffic lights. The police came and hauled Aaron away. And little Emily, she started to cry. She didn't know why they took him away, but always found beauty in the sky. So the next day, she lifted a hand, and she turned off the fuse box that day. You see, Emily found the fuse box to the city. She wanted to make everything just a little more pretty, so she flicked the master switch. And that's when everyone started to dum-dum-dum-dum. That was amazing. You saw all of that in the bottom of your teacup? I may have taken a few creative liberties here and there. Nevertheless, all of it was completely true. I was there when it happened, Charlie said with a wink. I'll work on it, and maybe I'll wake you up one of these mornings with it fully composed on the piano, Charlie joked. The thought of Charlie possessed of the keys turned my stomach. I particularly appreciated the part about the fax machine, I rejoined with heavy irony. When do you think I can start those piano lessons? Charlie picked up the business card and studied it. Saraswati. Huh. That's oddly appropriate. I'll call tomorrow and see if we can set something up soon. Maybe once you've learned your way around the keys, I can be your backup rhythm guitar. The power kicked back on, and the gray, lifeless windows of our house began to glow as the street illuminated the evening air. Well, sport, I guess we don't need those lanterns after all. As Charlie headed inside, I saw a white cat with a coat that shimmered like a pale beacon in the haze of the evening, grooming herself in the middle of our driveway. She glared back at us as Charlie disappeared into the house. She licked her lips, stretched her paws, and continued down the sidewalk. Her body melted into the pavement until there was nothing left to see. Cats are tricky like that. Every cat I've ever met has always seemed to have the ability to slip through the tightest of spaces and disappear on the other side. I'd love to know their secrets. I followed Charlie in and locked the door for the evening. I hand-washed our tea mugs and hung them back up in the kitchen before retiring for the night. That concludes another chapter of How to Kill a Piano. Thanks so much for coming. Before I let you go back to the real world, I just want to say a few things about the music you just heard. The song is called Aaron, and that was written when I was about 18 years old. I'm 37 this year. And it was written in a little place called The Coffee Studio, which was a little coffee shop in Plymouth, Michigan. I was strumming my guitar, and my friend Brian Bett and I would frequently write silly songs together. And I was playing a tune, just something I was playing around with, which is the music part of the Aaron song. And Brian started to craft the very beginning of the song of Aaron. The plot of somebody going out into the world and wanting to power down cities so they can appreciate the world outside their homes and appreciate the sky and live without light pollution was just such a beautiful concept. And I ran with it and went home and I finished writing the lyrics to the rest of the song. And we sang it together for a long, long time. We never performed any of the music that we wrote professionally, unless you count one little paid gig that we did as street artists, not as buskers per se. We were part of a on the streets music festival that we were asked to do our silly little music to one time. That was our big debut. But some of those songs have stayed with us. My friend Emily Hultum wanted to record some of the music that we did, and she was kind enough to record the track that you heard today. And she surprised us by playing violin and doing more vocals over the music bed that we laid down. The little additional pieces of piano were added specifically for this episode as well, just kind of fleshing it out. So the piece you heard is actually the culmination of time from around 2001, 2002 to a little bit of a splash probably around 2004 to now, 2020. So a song that has been literally 19 years in the making. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. Originally, Brian Bett was supposed to be the one singing on that track, and he hadn't yet learned the song, and so he's rusty for it. So I did a take singing over my guitar playing for it, with absolutely no intention of anyone ever hearing it, because I was singing slightly off key, and it wasn't the best performance of my life, but I was trying to give him just the melody. Well, the other thing that Emily surprised us with was that she completely scrapped Brian's original vocals and just kept my voice on the track, which to this day I'm not sure how I feel about, but it probably turned out just fine. There's one additional surprise, and if you go to our blog at howtokillpiano.com, you'll be able to listen to that. There is that she made a special cut of the song with an additional surprise of her voice, being Emily, crying at the end of the song in a very comic, laughable, cartoony style sob. And it cracks me up every time I listen to it. So if you want to listen to that, there will be no additional piano or anything. But if you want to listen to the original track that Emily put an additional Easter egg into, go to howtokillapiano.com. We'll have it posted there. Anyway, thanks again for listening. We appreciate you. Please come back next week.